Now, for more on Africa's startup landscape, I spoke to Adebayo Dawodu. He's the co-founder and technology director for the African startup accelerator, Tiphub. I began by asking about the country's reshaping the continent's startup landscape.
I think Nigeria is one of those that are definitely trying to lead the way, but you have countries like Rwanda and South Africa. They're leading the way not necessarily because of the innovation, but because of the government, the governance of the governance over how easy it is to conduct business in those countries. I think Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, and Rwanda are the ones that I can say are the front leader in terms of that innovation and solution on the continent right now.
And when it comes to some of the sectors that are really taking off, are there particular ones that are really pushing ahead, whether it's tech or mobile payments? What are people really focusing on at the moment?
You know, right now there's a big focus on fintech, in the financial and mobile money, obviously. Agri-tech is also definitely taking a big wave, and there's a big cry or a big demand in the educational space for learning, or finding a beautiful platform that makes it easy for the people on the continent to learn better, learn faster, so they can be able to improve whatever it is that they're working on. So I think those are the top three ones right now that I've seen from my own experience on the continent.
Now, as you said, you've just come back from Nigeria. What's your experience like been on the ground when it comes to the day in the life, basically, of entrepreneurs that are there versus the perception perhaps from the outside? What did you come to find?
Being there is a totally different reality. You start to see that beyond the infrastructure of things, you know, people always talk about Africa or Nigeria specifically or Ghana. The infrastructure is not strong, lack of electricity, which obviously drives up a lot of costs for the companies. But when you get out there, you start to see that, you know, it goes beyond just the lack of infrastructure. Simple things as volunteerism or collaboration are one of those things I think is plaguing innovation on the continent and even in Nigeria. So being on the ground, I for one see that there's people are not collaborating. So if I have A, B, and C, but I need D, but I know somebody else have E, versus us collaborating to find what D is, we're just trying to figure it out on our own, and you don't realize that somebody else, and before you know, somebody else is already taking the leap beyond where you want to get to. But I think the idea that people don't understand the idea of shared learning. If they're sharing their knowledge together and collaborating together, things can move a lot faster. You know, the government can do more. Not to say they're not doing anything, but they can do a little bit more. Beyond that, also access to capital. You know, is one of those things that a lot of startups have. They have great ideas, great plans to implement their solution, but not having the right policies in place, the right funding in place. You know, those things can sometimes slow a lot of their growth. And also knowledge. You know, not knowing, you just don't know what you don't know. You know, and from my own experience, it seems as if that majority of the people in Africa, in Nigeria, sometimes feel like they learn just enough to do versus enough just for them to evolve. And that's part of it because they're not volunteering enough or collaborating enough to see what the next step are for them.
And definitely, collaboration seems to be that ongoing theme. Are you finding that that companies that are on the continent are tending to collaborate more regionally, or are they trying to reach more towards Silicon Valley and the West? Where are their target growth markets?
A lot of the VCs are developing developing strategy around Africa, the African market. And in Africa, a lot of the startups also, they're trying to find a way to penetrate the Silicon market, to be able to get VCs from there or share their ideas or collaborate together. Those things are going on. There's another organization that came to Nigeria called Stella.org. They came with the idea of trying to improve the way the transaction is conducted from country to country. You know, how do we move money and conduct transactions? So companies like that are also coming into Africa to trying to collaborate together and creating a platform that is easy for people to engage and start to innovate.
For people who are on the outside looking in, if you're an investor and you're wondering, why should I invest in businesses on the continent, what message would you like them to have?
There's two ways that I look at it. You know, there's investors that want to focus on the next big thing. But as an investor, you know, some of these things that the people on the continent, even in Nigeria or Kenya, are trying to solve, they are like their life depends on it. You know, it's one of those things that, let's say, for example, or basic things as transportation, creating a better transportation system in Africa. As this startup are building a solution around it, they need it to be able to compete. So it's not because it's not a luxury for startups to create solution. It's actually because there's a need, there's a special need for any investors are impact-driven, impact-focused. African is the place to look at for the next wave of investment because these things can totally change. The solution can totally change people's life, not just making the investors richer at the end of the day.